welcome to the Deep Dive. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel. Today, we're diving into a case that's captivated people for nearly 2 decades. The disappearance of Brianna Maitland.
A case that has, baffled investigators and left her family searching for answers for almost 20 years.
17-year-old Brianna vanished from Montgomery, Vermont back in 2004, leaving behind, a trail of unanswered questions.
A real mystery, a lot of twists and turns. We're going to try to unpack some of that today.
Yeah, hopefully we can shed some light on this case.
Wow.
So Brianna was last seen leaving her job at the Black Lantern Inn on March 19, 2004. Her car was found the next day, abandoned. It was backed into an old barn off a remote road, but there was no sign of Brianna.
Yeah, and that detail right there, the car backed into the barn, that's one of the things that's always stood out to me.
It's odd, right? Like, why back it in? Was someone trying to hide it?
You would think so, but the headlights were left on.
It's almost like they wanted the car to be found, but not what was inside. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think it's important to understand who Brianna was, before that night.
Absolutely. So from what we know, Brianna was a pretty typical teenager in a lot of ways. She was described as bright, independent, hardworking.
But like a lot of teenagers, she was also dealing with some personal challenges in the months leading up to her disappearance. Like, what kinds of challenges?
Well, she had recently moved out of her parents' home and was living with a friend. There were also some reports of an altercation, a physical altercation with another girl.
So not a, completely straightforward life. It definitely adds another layer to this mystery. Can you walk us through the timeline of Brianna's last known activities?
Sure. So on March 19th, the day she disappeared, Brianna took a GED test in the afternoon. Later, she went shopping with her mom, and this is where things start to get a little strange.
Okay, how so?
Well, witnesses who saw Brianna that day described her as unusually nervous and distracted, almost like she was anticipating something bad was going to happen.
Wow, that's a chilling detail. Do we know if she said anything to her mom or anyone about why she was feeling this way?
Unfortunately, no. Her mom reported that she didn't elaborate on what was bothering her, but it was definitely out of character for her.
That's so strange. So after shopping, what did she do?
She went to work her shift at the Black Lantern Inn. She left around 11:20 p.m., telling her coworkers that she was headed home.
And that was the last time anyone saw her?
As far as we know, yes.
So we have this young woman dealing with some personal issues, acting strangely nervous just hours before she vanishes. And then her car is found in this bizarre state. It's a pretty compelling mystery. But before we get into the theories about what might have happened to Brianna, I think it's important to understand how the initial investigation unfolded. Were there any early missteps that may have hindered the search for answers?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest criticisms of the initial investigation was the assumption that Brianna had run away.
Really?
Yeah, and that delayed a full-scale investigation, which meant crucial time and evidence was lost.
That's got to be so frustrating for her family.
Yeah.
Knowing that time was slipping away, how did they react to this theory that she had run away?
They were adamant that it wasn't true. They knew Brianna, and this was completely out of character for her.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they pushed for more thorough investigation, and eventually the police did ramp up their efforts. But unfortunately, by then, valuable time had already been lost.
It's a tragic reminder of how important those early hours and days are in a missing persons case. So it seems like there were some crucial missteps early on. Now let's shift gears a bit and explore the theories that have emerged to try and explain Brianna's disappearance. What are some of the main scenarios that investigators have considered?
Well, there are 4 main theories that have really been looked at over the years, each with its own, supporting arguments and counterpoints.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. Starting with the possibility that Brianna knew her abductor. What makes investigators consider that scenario?
Well, the lack of signs of a struggle at the scene where her car was found is a big one. It suggests that Brianna may have gotten into a car with someone willingly, perhaps someone she knew and trusted.
That's a scary thought. But it does make you wonder, about the psychology of it all. If someone she knew was involved, how might trust or manipulation have been used?
Right. It's a disturbing thought. We've seen it before in similar cases where a perpetrator might exploit a pre-existing relationship with the victim, using that trust to manipulate and control.
It's a harsh reminder that even the people we think we know can be capable of terrible things. Let's move on to the second theory, the drug connection. Montgomery, I understand, had a bit of a drug problem at the time. And Brianna was acquainted with, some people involved in that scene. Could that have played a role in her disappearance?
It's certainly possible. Some have suggested that, maybe Brianna witnessed something she shouldn't have. Or perhaps she got caught up in something dangerous. There was even a tip that came in back in 2006 claiming that Brianna was killed over a drug debt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was there any evidence to back that up?
No, unfortunately not. No concrete evidence has ever been found to support that claim.
Even if we don't have hard evidence, are there any, circumstantial indicators, like patterns in Brianna's social circles or events leading up to her disappearance that might point in that direction?
That's a good question. We don't have access to all the specifics of the investigation, but it is possible that certain patterns or connections could shed light on this theory.
I see what you mean. Sometimes those little details can end up being really important. All right, let's move on to the third theory, the possible link to Maura Murray's disappearance. Now, for those who might not be familiar with that case, Maura Murray disappeared in February of 2004, just a few months before Brianna. Both cases happened in Vermont. Both involve young women who just vanished, leaving very few clues behind. What are the, specific similarities between these cases, and what's fueled the speculation that they might be connected?
Well, the proximity in time and location is definitely striking. You have two young women disappearing under mysterious circumstances, leaving very little behind. And, of course, both cases remain unsolved. So it's natural for people to wonder if there's a connection, maybe the work of the same person.
Makes sense.
But it's important to remember that no direct link has ever been established.
Right. Similarities don't necessarily equal a connection. Correlation doesn't equal causation, as they say. Now let's talk about the fourth theory, and maybe the most unsettling one. The theory that Brianna was killed by someone she knew. Is there any evidence to support that?
Well, there have been rumors over the years, people claiming to know about Brianna's murder, but none of these so-called confessions have ever been substantiated.
So a lot of talk, but no concrete evidence. It's interesting how that theory that someone you know is responsible always seems to be the one that people latch on to. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because it's the one that scares us the most. The idea that someone we trust, someone close to us, could be capable of such a thing is terrifying.
It's a chilling thought. So we've looked at the four main theories, but as we've seen, none of them give us a definitive answer. There are still a lot of unanswered questions in this case. What are some of the most puzzling ones that have lingered all these years?
For me, it always goes back to the car. Why was it backed into that barn? Was it really a deliberate attempt to conceal it? Or was there another reason entirely? And if Brianna was abducted, why were there no signs of a struggle?
Yeah, those are big questions.
Yeah.
And the lack of answers just adds to the mystery surrounding this whole case.
Let's dive a little deeper into these unanswered questions. Maybe we can uncover some new insights. What other aspects of the case do you find particularly perplexing?
The lack of a struggle is, it's strange.
It really is.
Could it be that that Brianna knew her abductor, maybe, and didn't feel threatened?
It's possible, or maybe there was some kind of coercion involved that, that we just don't know about.
Exactly, and this is a question of motive. If someone did harm Brianna, why?
Right. Was it personal?
Yeah.
A crime of opportunity? Something else entirely?
We just don't know.
And without a motive, it's almost impossible to put the pieces together.
It really is. We've talked about the lack of a struggle, the car being backed into the barn, the motive, or lack thereof. Are there any other unanswered questions that you think are really important to understanding what happened to Brianna?
One thing that keeps coming back to me is Brianna's demeanor while she was shopping with her mom that day.
Yeah, that was strange.
Was she actually nervous about something specific? Or was it just, a coincidence?
I mean, it's hard to say.
And if she was afraid, did she tell anyone else? It's a small detail, but it could be a vital clue.
Yeah, you're right. It could connect to one of the theories we've been talking about.
Exactly.
Despite all these unanswered questions, there have been some developments in the investigation over the years.
Right.
Can you tell us about some of the key breakthroughs and maybe some of the dead ends, too?
Sure. So back in 2007, the FBI got involved.
Okay.
Which, that brought in new resources and expertise.
That's got to be good.
You would think so, but unfortunately, it didn't really lead to any major breakthroughs.
And then in 2012, a skull was discovered in the area.
Oh, wow. Did they think it was Brianna's?
They did initially. The DNA testing showed that it wasn't hers.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. So even with the FBI's involvement in these leads that popped up, the case is still unsolved. Have there been any other updates since then, since that skull was found?
Yeah, in 2016, the police announced they were still receiving tips about the case.
So people haven't forgotten about her.
Not at all. It shows that people still care and they're still looking for answers.
That's good to hear.
But sadly, none of those tips have led to an arrest or any real resolution.
It's really a testament to how much this case has impacted the community. And the people who've been following Brianna's story, it's been years, but there's still that hope that someday the truth will come out. Considering all we've talked about today, what do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's a reminder to be vigilant. If you see something that seems off, something that just doesn't feel right, don't ignore it, report it. You never know, right?
Exactly. It might be the missing piece of the puzzle that helps solve a case.
It could bring someone home.
Absolutely.
That's a really important message. And, we can't forget about Brianna's family and friends. They've been living with this for so long. The not knowing, the questions, it's a heavy burden.
It really is. And, we can't truly understand what they're going through, but we can offer our support.
Absolutely. We started this deep dive hoping to maybe unravel some of the mysteries surrounding Brianna Maitland's disappearance. But as we've seen, there's still so many questions. And the truth, it remains elusive. Brianna's story, though, it's a reminder of how fragile life can be.
Yeah.
And how important it is to never give up hope.
It's also a reminder to be aware of our surroundings, to be present and engaged in our communities.
Yeah, to look out for each other. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a really poignant and thought-provoking conversation. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.